Expanded story. The cold morning mist clung to the towering stone walls of the besieged castle, a grim reminder of the stalemate that had lasted for months. Outside, the army of Lord Reynard stood in tense anticipation. His forces had spent weeks battering the fortifications with trebuchets, but the defenders, led by Sir Baldwin, held firm. Supplies inside were dwindling, but morale remained high. The castle was well defended, and its walls had withstood assaults before. It was a battle of patience, strategy, and weaponry. The longbow and the crossbow, two of the most formidable ranged weapons of the medieval age, were about to determine the fate of the siege. The question was, which would reign supreme in this relentless contest of endurance and skill? #, the longbowmen, masters of speed and skill. Lord Reynard's army consisted largely of English longbowmen, men who had trained since childhood to draw their powerful bows. Each archer could fire up to 12 arrows per minute, raining a deadly storm upon the castle defenders. From their elevated positions behind wooden palisades, the longbowmen loosed their shafts in great arcs, each missile capable of piercing armor at long range. As the sun climbed higher, waves of longbow arrows hissed through the sky. The defenders below scrambled for cover, but some fell where they stood, their mail shirts no match for the hardened arrowheads. Sir Baldwin, from atop the battlements, watched the enemy with calculating eyes. He knew his men could not afford to waste their own bolts in a desperate counterattack. They would have to bide their time and strike with precision. #, the crossbowmen, the great equalizers. Within the castle walls, the crossbowmen waited in silence. Unlike the longbow, the crossbow required less training. Any soldier with strength could load and fire one. The men worked methodically, placing their weapons on rests, cranking back the powerful mechanisms, and locking bolts into place. When the order came, they took aim and fired. The thick, steel-tipped bolts flew straight and true, slamming into the enemy lines with devastating force. Longbowmen caught in the open cried out as the heavy projectiles punched through their armor. Unlike the lighter longbow arrows, these bolts carried greater kinetic energy, making them lethal at shorter ranges. #, the tactics of siege warfare. For days, both sides engaged in a deadly exchange. The longbowmen harassed the defenders relentlessly, keeping them pinned down. But the crossbowmen, protected behind mullions and arrow slits, returned fire with calculated efficiency. The battle was no longer just a contest of weapons, it was a test of endurance and wits. Lord Reynard, frustrated by the slow progress, ordered a daring nighttime assault. Under cover of darkness, his men carried great wooden shields and scaling ladders, hoping to reach the walls before the defenders could react. But Sir Baldwin had anticipated such a move. He had stationed his crossbowmen at key vantage points. As the attackers neared, they were met with a withering volley of crossbow fire. The heavy bolts, loosed from above, shattered through shields and helmets, forcing the would-be invaders to retreat in chaos. #, the climactic assault. Realizing the siege could not last indefinitely, Lord Reynard gambled on a final, decisive attack. He ordered his longbowmen to fire a relentless volley, while his knights prepared for a full-scale assault on the gate. Battering rams rolled forward, and siege towers inched closer under the cover of the arrow storm. Inside the castle, Sir Baldwin knew his men were at their limit. If the gate fell, the castle would be lost. He ordered his crossbowmen to focus all their fire on the incoming siege engines. Bolt after bolt flew, embedding themselves in the wooden towers, slowing their advance. Meanwhile, hot sand and boiling oil were poured from above, adding to the devastation. As the first wave of attackers reached the walls, the battle descended into brutal melee combat. Crossbowmen abandoned their weapons and took up swords, fighting side by side with the castle's defenders. The longbowmen, now engaged in close quarters, could no longer rely on their speed and accuracy. #, victory and defeat. After hours of relentless combat, the attackers began to falter. Lord Reynard, seeing his forces dwindling, called for a retreat. The defenders, though bloodied and exhausted, had held their ground. The crossbow had proven its worth in defense, while the longbow had dominated the open battlefield. In the aftermath, the castle stood, but at a great cost. The survivors tended to the wounded, and the dead were honored on both sides. The battle had shown the strengths and weaknesses of both weapons. The longbow's rapid fire had nearly overwhelmed the defenders, but the raw power and precision of the crossbow had turned the tide within the castle walls. Here's an expanded version of your paragraph, incorporating additional details about the debate, historical context, and the impact of these weapons on medieval warfare. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. The debate rages on. The legacy of the longbow and crossbow. Long after the smoke had cleared and the bodies had been carried away, the great debate continued. Which weapon was superior, the longbow or the crossbow? Across the halls of castles, the training yards of knights, and the pages of military manuscripts, the question was posed time and time again. The answer, however, was never simple, for it depended not just on the weapon itself, but on the battlefield, the wielder, and the circumstances of war. For sheer volume of fire, the longbow remained unparalleled. A skilled archer, trained from youth, could release between 10 to 15 arrows per minute, creating a deadly rain of projectiles capable of devastating an advancing army. At battles such as Agincourt in 1415, English longbowmen, standing in the mud and outnumbered, decimated the heavily armored ranks of the French knights, proving that skill and discipline could overcome brute force. The longbow was a weapon of endurance, requiring years of training, but in the hands of a master, it could dictate the course of an entire battle. But war was not always fought on open fields. Within the tight confines of castle walls, along narrow stone corridors, and atop crumbling battlements, the crossbow proved its worth. Unlike the longbow, which required immense upper body strength and lifelong practice, the crossbow was a weapon of precision that could be wielded effectively with only basic training. It could pierce the heaviest plate armor with a single well-placed shot, making it the bane of knights who had once felt invincible behind layers of steel. The crossbow's ability to deliver devastating force with minimal effort made it a favorite among defenders in sieges, where accuracy and stopping power mattered more than speed. The siege of Lord Reynard and Sir Baldwin was just one of many battles where these weapons clashed, each proving its strengths and weaknesses. The longbowmen, positioned atop the wooden palisades, loosed their deadly shafts in rapid succession, thinning the ranks of the attackers before they could reach the walls. But the crossbowmen, positioned behind murder holes and arrow slits, fired with deadly accuracy, ensuring that each bolt found its mark. It was a battle not just of weapons, but of tactics. The longbow was a weapon of the open battlefield, thriving in the hands of disciplined formations. The crossbow was a weapon of siege warfare, perfect for slow, grinding engagements where a single well-placed shot could change the tide of battle. As history marched forward, both weapons continued to evolve. The longbow remained a symbol of English military dominance well into the late Middle Ages, but the rise of professional armies and mercenary crossbow units led to a gradual shift in favor of firearms. By the 16th century, gunpowder had rendered both the longbow and the crossbow obsolete, but their legacy endured. Yet, if there was one undeniable truth, it was this. Victory in battle did not belong to the weapon alone. It belonged to the strategy, the discipline, and the courage of those who wielded them. No weapon, no matter how powerful, could guarantee success without the strength and determination of the warrior who drew its string and loosed its deadly payload. The debate over the superiority of the longbow or the crossbow may never be settled, but one thing is certain. The men who fought with them shaped the course of history, their stories forever etched into the annals of medieval warfare. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a part of our community. Here, you'll find historical wars, inspiring stories, and unique content based on real events. If you want to see more engaging and fact-based stories, hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest videos instantly. Your support means the world to us. Leave a comment and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover next. Raising hands fire, bell subscribe, share, and help us bring these incredible stories to the world.